Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back. We have got the release of One Piece now officially out, and it won't release till Sunday, but it is out there. It is ready to talk about, and we do need to talk about this chapter because, unfortunately, I will mention at the end again. Oda is having eye surgery, so we are not getting a chapter for about 5 weeks. So Oda has left us with enough here. He certainly left it on a big chapter that we've got our fill. We've got our discussions now. We can theorize all we want because all of the things he reveals at the end of the Reverie now are just incredible. He is really not holding anything back now, and all this information that we've been waiting to find out, he's finally ready to reveal. So, no cover story, just a nice simple color spread about some of the straw hats and playing in water and like rainbows and stuff, which is pretty cool. But chapter 1086, the five elders, or the five elder planets, the Gorosei, the men themselves. So we have a lovely shot of Marijois, and we have our narrator talking a lot throughout this chapter. And he says that the reverie has come to a close, but before the news of King Cobra's murder came to light. So this is just as everyone is getting ready to leave. No one knows yet. We have Igaram, Shocker, and Pell are three members who support the Alabaster family that we saw. They are all searching for Vivi. So Igaram is running around with pictures of Vivi, saying, "Has anyone seen her? Does anyone know?" He's in tears. We've got Pell up in the sky, probably flying around. We just see him in his falcon form. And then we've got Shaka sort of screaming almost at people like guards, like, "Where's the king? Has his condition worsened?" They know something's up, don't know he's died yet. But the narrator goes on to say that as everyone is leaving, everyone's returning to their own ships to go back to their kingdoms, that a number of stowaways are attempting to escape on various ships. And we sort of jump around now. So, first off, we have Wapple and Vivi. They are currently hiding away, and they are on Aegis Kingdom ship. Now, we've not really heard much. The name rings a bell to like Cypher Pole, Zero, Aegis. I don't know if there's a connection. We do find out a bit more about the Aegis Kingdom later on in this chapter, but Wapple is communicating with someone, and we know who this is because not only do they talk back, but we've seen what happens in this interaction. Wapple is communicating with Morgan, and he's saying to Morgan that they were on the Aegis Kingdom ship, and Wapple is saying that he needs like Morgan to come pick him up. So Morgan says, "Right, I'm going to fly over. We'll bring the headquarters over, and we're just going to pretend that we're manhunting this scoop, this big news, and that's your chance to hop on board." And Waffle's like, "Cool, right, I'll wait here for you. Like, hurry up, basically." And when the transpond ends, Vivi starts to question Wapple on what did he actually see in the room. Like, what was he so afraid of? And Waffle's like, I ain't telling you anything. There is not a chance that you're getting that information out of me. Like CP0 enough. No joke. Like, I am not having anyone. I'm not having any ties. Like, no matter how much you try, they will not rest. So he says, "Look, I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut." So he was like, "All right, then just pass the transponder and say, let me see if my dad's all right." And he's like, "Nope, nope, that's not gonna happen. Get lost. Not gonna happen." And she's like, "What are you on about?" So obviously Waffle's not gonna tell her. But we get a few shots of Cyberpol Zero themselves. We've got, I wrote his name down, Gizmonda, Spandam, and another agent. They are the ones who we don't see much of. We see the other ones during 1-0, but we see them on the search for Vivi and Sabo. And this is where we then see Bonnie is on the Taijin kingdom ship in the hatch, just hiding away, saying she's hungry. We know she's a big fan of food. And on the Lucia's ship, hidden away, is Sabo. Now, if we think back to Sabo escaping from Eames' chambers, and he flashbacks to this because he's thinking on Cobra's last words, saying that he's got to live on. Sabo took one hit, one arrow, pierce shot, whatever it was, we don't actually know yet. One attack from Eam, and he looks bloodied. That after just one attack, unless something else happened, we don't know. Sabo went into the fight trying to like rook, checkmate, knightmate, what smother mate against the six of them, the five elders and Eam, but was seemingly unharmed. But as soon as he took this one attack from Eam, he's now like wincing in pain. So there is some after effect to Eam's ability. Now there's theories online that as much as Oda is drawing shadows, again we know Oda loves curveballs and red herrings and different things. There is an idea that it's a water based attack because we know that Sabo has got a devil fruit. So the creator of the world, Eam, who's been ruling it, could be a natural enemy to devil fruit users. That's why they are so strong. So he is just pretty much out right now, just sort of recoiling from his wounds. But the narrator picks back up and talks about how it didn't take long for the two stories to find their way out across the globe. We've got King Cobra's death and the disappearance of his daughter, Vivi. So major news, and it's like a lovely shot of all of the kingdoms leaving. But we don't leave Marie-Joie just yet. We come back, and it's the five elders speaking in their chambers. We've got that fancy transponder snail in the middle that Eam is communicating with them on. And they are talking about how Sabo is a very lucky person in the sense that their fate, his fate, of encountering so many people that have D in their name, the letter D, that he is surrounded by people, and they're saying it can't be any sort of coincidence. We'll just have to wait and see. But we see Eam is ringing in, and Garcia is the one to say that he wanted to deal with the egghead issue now, but complications from this reverie have rose and they have to take priority. So St. J. Garcia already had intentions to head for Egghead, but that issue was put on the back burner to deal with the aftermath of what's just happened at Reverie, Sabo seeing Eam and escaping Wapol as well. So two people have currently spread out into the world to start telling people about Eam's existence. But Eam seems to now be making preparations. And they say the time has come to put Vegapunk's invention to the test. That we need to use the Mother Flame. So they talk now amongst themselves, the five elders, about this weapon that's never been used before. We haven't had the chance to test it. And the samurai man with the sword is saying, well, depends on how well this goes. Egghead may reconsider its response uh, to the Navy. So, depending on how well this plans out, Vegapunk might change his mind. And they're talking to Eam about choosing a suitable location, somewhere away, a forest somewhere, just like a test run to see how it works. Eam cuts them off. Leloucia Kingdom. Are you sure? There's people there. are we really gonna? Yeah, it's of no consequence. Ian says, doesn't matter. And already the five elves are like, okay, understood. You are the creator. Your word is thus, and the sort of blonde-haired, sharper five elders like, why choose Lelucia? And Eames just like, it's in close proximity. So interesting that Sabo is heading for Lelucia, and unless Eames is aware of it, he's not making the elders aware of it. So I don't think Eames aware of it. But it just so happens that where Sabo was heading was where Eam wanted to test the Mother Flame. Now, he does say it's in close proximity. So whether this weapon is close to Marijois, we know it's flying in the sky somewhere. It's come from Marijois, and it's just the first kingdom. Eam just wants to test it now to make a show of power that he has something that can wipe out an entire island. So, a pretty ballsy move. Would have been fortunate and lucky if Sabo did reach the island or was still on it. Would have been two birds at one stone when they got that message back. When Lucy was destroyed, yes, Sabo was on it. Oh well, two birds at one stone. Lucky us. But unfortunately, Sabo was off island. But this is interesting because the five elders have always worked under Eam and followed their orders. We don't know if it's male or female. Followed their orders. And that's the first interaction we've seen where they've questioned Eam's motives. So they are not mindless pawns in this. They do not go, yes, sir, madam, yes, we praise you. Your order is just. Let's go. Let's go bomb Lucia. They were in a big conversation about, is this the right thing to do? Are we sure about this? Yeah. Okay. We'll go with your understanding. It shall be as you say. And then we get the names of each individual five elder member. So, All Saints, as we are fully well aware, starting on, we'll go across. We start with St. J. Garcia Saturn. We knew him anyway from a number of chapters ago now. He's on his way to Egghead. So we have seen this man in the previous chapter amongst all the other five elders transform in some capacity. So the likelihood of them all having a devil fruit, all having a incredibly broken ability, is highly likely. So this man is the science defense warrior god. So no wonder he's the one in charge of heading to Egghead, because he's in charge of all the science developments in the world, I guess. But he's like, yeah, we'll make the preparations, leave it to me. So he is Saturn of the five elder planets. We then have the next individual, who is the taller man with the long mustache and beard, really like slender. And he is saying that Lelucia was in line to rebel anyway. So, it's of no consequence anymore. And his name is Saint Marcus Mars, the environmental warrior god. So we have our Mars planet. Next is our long mustache fellow with like the birthmark on his head. And he is saying, yeah, we will make an example out of Lelucia. And he is the justice warrior god, Saint Topman Valkyrie. So, just from hypothesizing, we don't know the other two names yet, but hypothesizing that he is probably Mercury in conjunction with the planets is most likely, because the other two are probably very obvious. We have our glasses sword wielding individual. He is Saint Ethan Baron V. Nusjuro. Very Wano sounding name. but having V in his name, he is probably Venus, and he is the finance warrior god. And the final individual, probably the youngest of them all, the blonde haired individual, he saying that, we can snuff out this conflict before it arises. He is Saint Shepherd Jew Peter. Funny little pun there from Oda. So even though it's separate, Jupiter. So he is Jupiter for the planet, and he is the agricultural warrior god. So I find it very funny that they all have what is some working capacity, job, title, even though it says warrior god. We've got the one who's in charge of science, the one who's in charge of the environmental, the one who's in charge of justice, one's in charge of finance, and one's agriculture. So they've seemingly got all important roles to play other than dealing with what's happening. But as we are seeing now, Eames wanting to make a move, St. J. Garcia is out of the room and is heading to Egghead. No doubt the other five elders will start playing more of a role and start appearing more outside of the room. But Eam leaves them with one final request, which is to retrieve Vivi. And we've seen this obsession now with Cobra's letter that the Nefertari family have the D initial in the name. So Eam wants Vivi captured for some reason. But meanwhile, we cut away to Marines being deployed across the world. We see Akiyinu, and we hear that the Taijing Kingdom, where Bonnie was heading, and the Aegis Kingdom, where Wapol and Vivi were on, those kingdoms have both rebelled. So they are kingdoms that were in the 20, I believe, odd. 12 of them were successful in the rebellion for the Revolutionary Army. So interesting that the ships they chose were the ships that later were the ones that rebelled. So good choosing on their part, I guess. But between the seven warlords being disbanded at this time and the uprising from these nations, the Navy's got their hands full. And we hear word that Crocodile has been spotted on Empty Bluff Island, as we are aware of the Cross Guilds. So we are told that the Seraphim are being deployed. And oh yes, we see the others. We have Doflamingo's Seraphim, we have Gecko Mori's Seraphim, and we have Crocodile's Seraphim. The three boys are back in their child forms. Doflamingo looks like he's going to be just as annoying as his adult form. We've got Gecko Warriors. S-Bat is probably what his name's going to be. He is just maniacally laughing and enjoying himself way too much. But we have S Crocodile on the end, looking nowhere near as happy as the other two. Looks miserable and seemingly depicting a more somber look to Crocodile. As we see him all the time, he seems a more stoic individual. So maybe we know that they retain memories because of the lineage factor from the person they've come from. So Doflamingo and Moria seem much more happier individuals and maniacs, but the more composed, more sad Crocodile Seraphim seems to just have the weight on his shoulders. So he's even got the scar across his face, but interesting. Doflamingo's got the glasses. If the Cross Guilds are still on Empty Bluff by the time these all arrive, we're going to get an interaction between Crocodile seeing a younger version of himself, and very interested to see what that's going to do. It looks as though, as well, the flames, because of the Lunarian DNA, that Gecko Moria doesn't just start on his back, it actually goes up to his hair, and his hairs are light. That's a nice little touch. And they've all got the PX tattoos. Doflamingo's in his flowery shirt. Oh, he's going to be an absolute menace, this kid. Oh, he's going to be such trouble. It's going to be great to watch. wonder if we'll actually see adult Doflamingo come back, but beside the point. We come back now to present time, and Sabo is basically finishing his wrap up of the story and saying that when he docked at Lelucia, the people were already uprising, and the king and princeps were ambushed and captured. And he said, "Well, I was a stowaway, but when I came out, they'd already seen the papers of Cobra's death, and unsurprisingly, I was treated as a hero because they thought like them. I was amongst the rebellion." And he said he saw the flames of rebellion again within them, and the words like died in his mouth. He didn't want to say what happened. These people were too happy for once in their lives with what was happening, the change they were bringing. He didn't want to bring that down. So he said, better to let them be inspired and let them be happy and recruit them than say what actually happened. But we see a little map, and he says, I tried to make contact without an encrypted snail. So what he did, he rerouted the call through Lucia. So while he was on his ship getting away with a few recruits, he sort of bounced and relayed the call to Kamabaka Kingdom that he was alive through Lucia. And he said he knew the government would intercept, but you know, doing it was sure to fool them to thinking he was still in Lucia. So Eam had already said go for Lucia. There was no real way of him of knowing that Sabo was heading there. It just happened to be coincidental, I think. Hope if Eam just knows everything. But while he was still in range, the ship was already overhead because Eam had issued the attack, and Ivankov is saying then what happened during, you saw the annihilation of Lucia. What is it you saw in front of your eyes? And Sabo explains about this enormous shadow engulfing the sky, this large, huge storm. And he said it was like seeing a natural disaster, but whatever was flying over the clouds, it wasn't natural. And Ivankov decides to interrupt at this point and says, "Oh well, you mentioned Eam earlier. This is Ivankov now rattling off as many hypotheses as they can, saying, right, well, you said Eam, so we got the name Eam. Well, it's no coincidence then that there was an Eam 800 years ago. That was one of the first sovereigns, and it was um, Saint Eam of House Nerona. So could just be a coincidence, but is it really? Because then he says, he brings out, it could be the Devil Fruit Encyclopedia, we don't really know. But he says, we know of an ability that grants eternal youth. Law's ability of the Op fruit. We are fully aware that it is a devil fruit that, in some capacity, one of its final moves is to sacrifice the user to give another person eternal life. So it's why the government wanted it again, probably way back when. 800 years ago would have been used on Eam, but it could also be a red herring that someone just took the moniker of Eam's name and is fooling the five elders. We don't know. That would be funny. But, it's certainly plausible that Eam is someone that's lived through all this time. They are actually immortal. And, could this be what you saw? It's not just a coincidence that one of the founders is actually who the five elder planets, they serve. They fancy themselves as descendants of the gods. So it's no it's not too far of a stretch to make them think that they'd worship someone who's immortal. But Ivankov then goes on to say, well, assuming what you saw above the clouds was a weapon from the government and it was a natural disaster, which we probably can rule out, only one such person could create that, and that would be Vegapunk. And then Dragon's like, whoa, hold up. There is no way that Vegapunk would intentionally design a killing machine, right? Ivankov then says, obviously, Dragon agrees with what Robin has told them, that it could be an ancient weapon, and it could be an ancient weapon from ancient times. There is a connection because Eames lived for so long. They have that connection now. Dragon says, "You're right. If it is an ancient weapon, which Robin's told us they exist, why wait till now to use it?" So Oda's really like splitting the difference here now. Of it is one of the ancient weapons, and for some reason, Eam has decided now to use it. So there was some reason why he couldn't use it for 800 years, or Vegapunk has built this weapon, and there's a lot more under the surface to Vegapunk than we know. We know through the cover stories and what we've seen so far of him, he was untoward to violence. He made flower bullets and all this, and even like Dragon is saying, Dragon is vouching for this character that he would never dedicate his work to making a killing machine, especially one that would sort of serve the world government because he's against them, or he's not against them and he is. But we know what his aim is. We know he wants to connect the world through his sort of hive mind at Egghead. But right now, we're either it's an ancient weapon or Vegapunk did build an island destroying weapon and it's in the government's hands. So we're left with those somber thoughts, but we don't just end before heading back to Marijois one last time to be greeted by a new character. So in the present day, we have a celestial dragon has just been sentenced to death. And this information will never reach the outside world, the narrator says. This is something that only the celestial dragons will be aware of. And the judge for this sort of execution was the king of God Valley, or the land formerly known as God Valley. So already this figure, in the history of what we know, God Valley, the famous island of Garp and Roger and the big rocks incident, vanished. We have the king of God Valley still around, and he currently serves as the supreme commander of God's Knights. So the God's Knights that we saw in silhouette form, we're already meeting the supreme commander, this saber wielding old man, very well dressed, very sort of stoic in his sort of seating, looks really badass, and his beard and hair sort of make a, it's like, crescent moon. So again, goes along with the planetary things of the god knights being moons, or moons to, yeah, moons to the planets, so in coordination with them. And he is Saint Figaland Garling. So the Garling family we know, or the Figaland family we know to have been um, one of the founding 20. He is a celestial dragon. So Garling here is the supreme commander. But fortunately, the celestial dragon that was put to death was Biosgard. He fought for so long, he chose to stand with Fishman, and the only thing we get from Darling is saying that, you know, anyone who wanted to protect scum is lower than the scum they protect. So he's got a very interesting outlook on things. But we end chapter 1086 there with a potential 5-week break. So hopefully Oda will be all right. He's having eye surgery because man's been working for a long, long time. His eyes have probably been under enough strain. I assume he's just getting some much needed rest and care after his operation. So all the best to him. But he left us with a lot. 5 elder names, new Seraphim. Well, we knew probably they were happening because it's all of the warlords, but we got to see them. We've now got the supreme commander of the God's Knight and all the information of what actually happened to Lucia and Sabo making it out. I assume this is the end of these sort of chapters, and when we pick back up 5 weeks' time, it'll be back on Egghead for the tragic or global world shaking incident that is about to occur. But let me know what you thought of the chapter. I will catch you guys later.